The 2025 MLB season is over, and the qualifying offer deadline and the non-tender deadline have passed. And you know what that means. It's time for free agent predictions. I like to pick 3 spots for each player, and I'll review them when the offseason is over and look at how I did. It might be a very strange offseason considering the looming lockout after the 2026 season that might impact how players sign this year, but regardless, let's get into the predictions. Coming off of a mixed year and another injury-mired season, I'm not sure Kyle Tucker's market is as clear as it would seem. Plenty of teams will be and should be interested in his services, but I don't think he commands the sort of 1A star power that, say, a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has, even if Tucker is arguably the better player. With that being said, he's still a very productive player when he isn't enduring a seemingly months-long injury that the medical staff refuses to admit to until it's gone on too long. I think there will be 2 clear frontrunners for Tucker, and they're both in the NL West. I have the Giants signing Kyle Tucker, looking to finally land that big fish they've been desperate to sign the past few years. Sorry, Devers. So, I have the second most likely team to sign the biggest free agent on the market as the Dodgers. I do think they will make a few significant signings this offseason as a sort of fuck you to the league and to further illustrate the problems with the current financial rules, but it's a video for another day. But I do not think Tucker will be one of those fuck you signings, though he would arguably be the most impactful of that category. My third prediction is the Blue Jays, who are presumably looking to add to their core with a reunion of Tucker and Springer to hopefully get them back to the World Series next year. After a second-place MVP season, Schwarber's market should be pretty strong, especially for teams looking to add a power bat with a DH spot open. Schwarber's also deceptively young at only 32, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a longer-term deal with a team that can link him with a core around the same age. Luckily for Schwarber, he doesn't have to go far. The Phillies have made it pretty clear they are the front-runner for Schwarber's services, and I don't expect anyone to outbid them. As for other potential teams in the mix, maybe the Red Sox would be looking for a reunion. We've heard a few murmurs and rumors about that. Another spot would be San Francisco if they miss out on Kyle Tucker. Ultimately, though, I don't think Schwarber leaves the Phillies. 2024 did not exist. Bo Bichette is a good hitter. It didn't happen. He didn't have a 70 WRC plus and 336 plate appearances. Don't worry about it, is what I would say if I was Bo Bichette's agent. Bichette's 2025 seems to prove that 2024 was a weird blip on the radar, and he seems to have proven again that he's a fairly consistent 300 average, around 800 OPS guy, but who plays abysmal shortstop defense. Jeff Passan reported that the defense is apparently not waving teams off of eyeing him as a shortstop, but I'm not sure he'll end up as the everyday shortstop wherever he lands, even if it's back in Toronto. My top 3 spots for Bichette are Toronto, San Francisco, and, as a bold fun guess, why not Kansas City? I'm not sure how much the Royals are willing to spend, nor how aggressive they will be in this market, but it could make some sense to replace India with Bichette to create a possibly very underrated infield of Maikel Garcia, Bobby Witt Jr., Bo Bichette, and Vinny Pasquantino. Need a top-end starter? Fromber's got you covered. Need an experienced postseason pitcher? Fromber's got you covered. Need your starter to cross up their catcher and confound the baseball world? Yeah, Fromber can do that too. So many teams could use a Fromber Valdez, but I think the team that ends up with him is the Giants. I know, 4th mention on this list already. They need a 1B to Logan Webb's 1A, and Fromber would be a perfect fit. Of course, the Giants' president of baseball operations, Buster Posey, might be warded off because of the miscommunication Valdez had earlier this year. In that case, I think he lands with the Mets, who are also looking for starting pitching help. My third guess is the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are also in desperate need of pitching to supplement their championship caliber core on offense. Alex Bregman is a professional hitter and clubhouse leader. That's really all there is to know about this guy. He's maybe the most consistent 4-WAR player in the game today. I don't think he leaves Boston. He seemed comfortable there, especially after Devers was traded and it kind of became his team. The Phillies would be an interesting fit for Bregman if the Phillies decide to give up on Alec Boehm and miss out on Kyle Tucker or Schwarber. My final guess is the Mets. I spent a long time deciding between the Mets and the Tigers, and while I think the Tigers would be a better fit for Bregman, I'm not confident in the Tigers front office being close to the number that Bregman wants. Pete Alonso is a Met, right? I just can't imagine him playing for any other team. The Mets still need to keep their offense as a strength, and although Alonso's second half left a bit to be desired, I don't think the Mets are in play for any higher-tier bats like Tucker and Schwarber. The Red Sox, however, are looking for a power bat to put in the middle of their order. Man, could you imagine if the Red Sox had a guy like Rafael Devers? They might have won the East. And my final guess, and bear with me here, is the Pirates. Okay. I know how that sounds, But we are hearing reports that the Pirates are looking to spend, probably to avoid a grievance like the A's last year with Luis Severino, if we're being honest with ourselves, and they need multiple bats desperately. Do I think it's likely? No, not at all. But it would be crazy. What was the deal with Ranger Suarez in the playoffs? Sure, his first and second half splits aren't pretty, but I couldn't believe the Phillies didn't let him start Game 3. Regardless of that and his Mackenzie Gore-like first half, second half splits, Ranger Suarez should have plenty of offers for teams that miss out on Framber Valdez or are warded off because of the cross-up. I think the Blue Jays will be the most interested and somewhat desperate to spend after an incredible playoff run. The Diamondbacks are my second guess, who still need plenty of pitching. And my final wildcard team is the Angels, because god damn it, I just have the feeling they're going to sign someone, and it just might be Ranger Suarez to supplement the rotation. Boy, what a roller coaster of a career Cody Bellinger has had. MVP heights, unplayable lows, and now seemingly just a very solid player. After Trent Grisham accepted his qualifying offer from the Yankees, I think they will still be in pursuit of re-signing Bellinger, but I don't think they will be the one to sign him. I think the Phillies are a bit of a dark horse to sign Bellinger, and the fit couldn't be much better. The Phillies need an outfielder, and while Bellinger's center field days might be behind him, he would be a large improvement in left field. The Yankees are my second choice, mostly because he's had so much success there because his swing was literally built for Yankee Stadium. I mean, look at this spray chart. This is ridiculous. Another location for Bellinger is a reunion with the Dodgers if they miss out on Kyle Tucker and are looking for a Kyle Tucker-like. You ever sleep so wrong you pinch a nerve in your shoulder that puts you out for 3 months? Michael King did. As for potential landing spots, I have the Mets as the most likely on account of David Stearns looking for slightly more under-the-radar pieces, and I mean slightly because King is one of the top 4 starters on the market, and they have a need for starting pitching. Next, I have the Orioles, who need any kind of pitching, except young, previously talented, albeit oft-injured starters with 4 years of control, apparently. I have my third most likely spot as the Blue Jays. Is Dylan Cease the most every other year pitcher of all time? I mean, I really think the entire outlook on his future relies on whether you look at an even-numbered year or an odd-numbered one. I mean, seriously, how does this keep happening? Maybe a video for the future. But for now, fortunately for whoever signs Cease, it's an even-numbered year next year. Analytically, Cease should be a very intriguing pitcher, but let me tell you, having watched basically all of his 32 starts this year as a Padres fan, I'm not sure I've seen a pitcher with less poise. The consensus on Cease seems to think that he's perhaps the best pitcher in this free agency class, but I simply cannot agree. This man has a Pomeranian in his chest. With that being said, I think he signs with his hometown Braves and forms a very strange yet fun pair with fellow mustachioed flamethrower Spencer Strider. Braves fans, I sincerely hope Dylan Cease is good for y'all. Another landing spot for Cease could be where he was almost traded at the deadline this year, the Houston Astros. The Astros have to cover innings with quality pitching, and Cease will consistently give you 30-plus starts and an ERA that always feels like it should be a bit lower. Finally, the Orioles have to get, a big starter, right? Is Munetaka Murakami Nick Kurtz, or is he Jack Suwinski? I have no idea, but I think I tend to lean towards the Suwinski-type outcome, or perhaps more Joey Gallo-like. Either way, I don't think he'll get a true mega deal. The swing and miss is a real concern for many teams, despite the prodigious power. As far as where he ends up, I do think it will be with the Dodgers. Where will he play? No idea. But at this point, and maybe it's a bit doomer of me to say and too cynical, but if the Dodgers want a Japanese player, I think they're likely to get him. The other two main competitors I have are the Yankees and Red Sox, both hoping he would acclimate to their parks well and hit the more Devers-like outcome. Man, could you imagine if the Red Sox had Tatsuya Imai is the best pitcher coming over from Japan, and much like with Murakami, if the Dodgers want him, I think they'll have him. I know what he said in an interview, that he wants to strike out Ohtani and that he wants to face the Dodgers and take them down. I'll believe it when I see it, unfortunately. Do the Dodgers need 9 starters? I mean, with how often their pitchers get hurt, probably. I also think the Giants will make a big play for Imai, and maybe even pry him away, though I don't think it's particularly likely. The Yankees have been reported to have interest in Imai, and given their strong pursuit for Yamamoto, I wouldn't be surprised if Imai ends up in New York. Edwin Diaz has been one of the best closers in baseball the past few years. He's a fan favorite in New York, but I don't think he'll be back there next year. Instead, I think he'll be moving across the country to a team that, despite the postseason, had a terrible bullpen all year. It's the third Dodgers signing in a row. Again, take my opinion with a grain of salt as a Padres fan, but I see no reason for the Dodgers to stop spending. They have infinite money. The tax is nothing to them. We'll see if this changes with the upcoming CBA dispute, but for now there's nothing stopping them from spending Bob Nutting's net worth on the team going forward. If, for some reason, they fail to get the best reliever on the market, I do think a reunion with the Mets is likely, and Steve Cohen might not want to get outbid anyway. Another team that should be interested in the Blue Jays, although I view them as a bit of a long shot. What's the deal with T-Mobile? I mean, you hit the ball and it goes far, but you only hit the ball 20% of the time, is probably what Eugenio Suarez is thinking to himself right now. Despite his terrible numbers for the Mariners last year, Suarez is a cult hero for Seattle. Unfortunately, I think Jerry Dipoto will make the same decision as last time and get rid of Eugenio Suarez. In fact, I think Gino will sign in the same place he was traded from, Arizona. They could use a third baseman, unless they want to commit to Jordan Lawler full-time, and he was incredible for them last year. Worst case, the D-backs are bad again and likely flip him at the deadline again. I do think the other most likely spot is back in Seattle. As I said, though his numbers and WAR were terrible, his vibes above replacement were off the charts, and I could see him sticking around on a short deal. A third spot was a little tough to find for Gino, but I think Philadelphia might be interested in an upgrade in Alec Boehm if they were to miss out on Bregman. Okay, maybe not every Japanese player lands with the Dodgers. Okamoto and Murakami would occupy similar positions already taken up by Freeman, Muncy, and Ohtani for the Dodgers, so if they signed Murakami, I don't see Okamoto signing there. Instead, I think Okamoto will sign with the Mariners. Wouldn't it just feel right for the Mariners to have a great Japanese player again? They need a third base bat, and while Eugenio is also likely, I'm not sure they'll sign him on account of him being terrible for them last year. I do think the other landing spot is Los Angeles. No, not that one, for the reasons I mentioned previously. The Yankees would also be a spot that makes a lot of sense for Okamoto, as the Yankees do need a first or third baseman. Guys, I think Zach Gallen might be breaking down. In each of the past 3 seasons, his ERA has increased to a concerning degree, but the bones of a great pitcher are still here. Gallen is coming off of his worst season in his career, and I could very realistically see him taking a 1-year prove-it deal with the Arizona Diamondbacks to hopefully hit the market after a better year. On the other hand, he might be looking for more guaranteed money based on the looming lockout after the 2026 season. If that's the case, I think smart pitching orgs like the Mets and the Red Sox would see Gallen as a small project, maybe a tweak or two on a pitch for him to regain his dominance. Robert Suarez, Raisel Iglesias, and Kenley Jansen represent the class of olds that are relievers. Iglesias is already re-signed with the Braves, and Kenley Jansen isn't quite as dominant as Suarez, which should bode well for Suarez's free agency case in the shadow of the more expensive Edwin Diaz. Plenty of playoff teams would be interested in adding top-end bullpen pieces, and I think the Yankees will sign Suarez to fill the Devin Williams gap in their bullpen. I also think the Jays are likely to sign Suarez as a co-closer with Jeff Hoffman. The last spot I have for Suarez is with the Dodgers, who have a precedent of poaching former Padres relievers to bolster their own bullpen. Perhaps one of the more underrated players in this free agency class, I'm not sure where O'Hearn's market lands. He was the starting DH for the AL in the All-Star game last year, but it was a bit underwhelming for the Padres. I think he will return to Baltimore because that worked so well for him last year, even though it was in more of a platoon role with Ryan Mountcastle. I think the Reds are also a solid landing spot for O'Hearn if the Reds feel that Sal Stewart isn't fully ready at the major league level despite his great showing at the end of last year. After reports of the Pirates being interested in Josh Naylor before he signed with the Mariners, I could see them making a play for O'Hearn instead, mostly to avoid a grievance from the MLBPA, although they do desperately need any offense they can get if they want to keep Paul Skeens. So what the fuck is Luis Arraez's value in today's market? Undoubtedly a very impressive bat-to-ball skill set, but that hasn't exactly translated to consistent success, most obvious in this past year. I think Arraez can be a very valuable bat used in the right environment, lineup, and situation. I think he will land with the Colorado Rockies because Paul DePodesta, the Rockies' new GM, might see the inefficiency in the market, we'll call it, from Arraez's skill set. I also think it's likely that he re-signs on a short deal with the Padres, who seem to value contact highly, though they do desperately need more slug, or at least an overhaul of the hitting philosophy. Third guess would be, the Pirates? Seems like a signing that is just enough to say they are spending, but it might not even break their previous highest free agent contract to Francisco Liriano in 2014. What a weird year Devin Williams had, huh? Still, despite his 4.79 ERA, many teams are looking at him with the desire to re-unlock the pitcher he used to be with a unicorn pitch like his airbender changeup. The team that lands him, I think, will be the Blue Jays, after missing out on other notable relievers like Edwin Diaz and Robert Suarez. Otherwise, the Dodgers and Mets seem like the teams most willing to spend on adding bullpen help, especially if either misses out on Edwin Diaz. In a similar way that Pete Alonso is a Met, JT Realmuto is a Philly, right? I fully do not expect him to sign anywhere else. Other landing spots could be, I don't know, Pittsburgh or maybe Cincinnati. Honestly, I don't think anywhere but Philly is that interested in Realmuto. While I don't think the Mariners will re-sign Eugenio Suarez, I do think signing Naylor and pairing that signing with Polanco will help stabilize the lineup for Seattle. I could also see the Angels being interested in him as one of their random signings, though they are generally more of the Yusei Kikuchi variety on the pitching end. The Royals could also be looking for a bat better than Jonathan India. There are a few teams looking for a center fielder, and Harrison Bader feels like a good fit for any of them. I have the Phillies as the most likely after Bader's strong postseason performance, then the Mets for a reunion to fill their gap in center field, and finally the Dodgers, who could still use outfield help. Honestly, I'm still surprised that Ha-Seong Kim opted out of his $16 million player option with the Braves. I think this is likely because he wanted a more guaranteed contract, and I think he will find that with the Braves, who are still looking for a dependable shortstop. I could also see the Pirates being a possible spot after O'Neal Cruz has moved to the outfield, and maybe the Yankees, who could be looking for a more stable shortstop than Anthony Volpe. What do you make of Lucas Giolito? He's one of the most unique pitchers in the sport with his short arm delivery, but I can't help but feel there's some potential that a team looking for pitching will attempt to tap into that potential. I think the Mets are a candidate, though it may end up more like the Frankie Montas deal than they might like. I could also see the Astros sign him to fill some gaps in their rotation. The Red Sox are my third answer, mostly because Giolito had a nice bounce-back year there last year. Out of all my picks, I think this is the one I'm the most confident about. Marcell Ozuna will be a Pittsburgh Pirate. They are reportedly looking to spend, as I've mentioned, and a somewhat washed veteran like Ozuna feels like a perfect candidate for them to say, hey, we got someone. Otherwise, I think the Braves are likely to give him another year, or the Red Sox after likely missing out on Kyle Schwarber. What a career Kate Upton's husband has had, huh? A miracle comeback year this year despite the lack of wins that he was looking for. I think a reunion with the Astros would make a lot of sense and should net him some wins, but I could also see him rejoin the Tigers to end his career. The third answer would be the Red Sox, who he would join mostly to chase wins and maybe a ring. Max Scherzer performs on the biggest stage. That's the pitch, I'd imagine. But I think many teams looking for Scherzer would need help getting to those big moments, and I'm not sure if Scherzer is reliable enough for those teams. My first choice is a fun one, a reunion with the Tigers, who could use an arm or two in their rotation, but are not likely to be looking at the top of the market. The Astros are also looking for pitching, and I could see the Blue Jays re-signing Scherzer after his strong postseason. Future Hall of Famer Paul Goldschmidt still has a bit left in the tank, as he showed specifically against lefties last year. A team that still needs help crushing lefties and has a need for a first base DH spot is the Padres, and given the financial constraints and propensity to sign old players, Goldschmidt feels like a good fit. I could also see a reunion farewell tour with either the Diamondbacks or the St. Louis Cardinals for his potential final year. Merrill Kelly is a pitcher who doesn't get much spotlight, but has been a quality arm for the last few years. I think he signs back with the Diamondbacks to bolster their rotation, and maybe even gets traded at the deadline again next year. Other teams looking for starters are presumably also interested, like the Mets, my second pick, and the Giants, my third most likely spot for Merrill Kelly's services.